come as a surprise for many to learn that Ukraine played a crucial role in defeating President Assad, and thus, Ukraine scored a huge win against Russia in Syria. Let's have a close look at this. The Khimik military group, a unit of the Ukrainian Special Forces, has been operating in Syria since at least September 2023. This group is part of Ukraine's efforts to target Russian military installations abroad, particularly in the context of the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine. The word, Khimik, means chemist, and the group itself is part of the Ukrainian Special Forces, and is a unit of the Ukrainian Main Intelligence Directorate, the HUR. Khimik was involved in training and supporting Syrian rebel groups, to regime change Assad and to defeat Russia in the Middle East. This training and support included training on how to operate drones effectively, which were crucial for the rebels in their defeat of Assad. Ukrainian intelligence operatives coordinated with Syrian rebels to help them manufacture drones and provide tactical training. This cooperation stemmed from a shared interest in countering Russian influence in both Ukraine and Syria. Ukrainian special forces also provided operational training, focused on tactics developed during the ongoing war in Ukraine. This included strategies for utilizing drones in combat scenarios, which gave Syrian rebels a significant advantage against Assad's forces. Both Ukraine and the Syrian terrorist groups, especially Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, or HTS, view Russia as a common enemy. Ukrainian officials have stated their intent to target Russian military assets globally, which further motivated their engagement with Syrian opposition groups. The use of drones transformed the dynamics of rebel offensives, allowing them to conduct precision strikes against Assad regime targets. This technological edge contributed to successes in capturing the entire country. The Khimik group's activities are part of a broader Ukrainian strategy to undermine Russian military capabilities abroad, particularly as Russia redirected some of its forces from Syria to support its operations in Ukraine. As well, the Khimik military groups assisted Turkey in its projects in the Middle East, by driving out the Russians and the Iranians. In fact, the Khimik group has been instrumental in bolstering Turkey's larger ambitions in the regions, especially by fragmenting control in northern Syria. These various operations made Russian positions in Syria more vulnerable to attacks from Ukrainian special forces and other rebel groups. They conducted several successful operations against Russian forces, including attacks on military bases and logistical hubs. These operations were part of Ukraine's broader strategy to target Russian interests abroad, and contributed to declining morale among Russian troops stationed in Syria, and forced them to retreat. In this way, Russian military logistics and operations in Syria were severely disrupted. Targeted strikes weakened Russian influence and capabilities in the region, thus ensuring that Syria would fall. Their tactics included the following. Surprise assaults on Russian military installations. For instance, on September 15, 2024, they launched an attack on a Russian base near Aleppo, which was involved in drone production and IED assembly. This attack was characterized by its timing and execution in broad daylight, taking advantage of the element of surprise to inflict maximum damage. The group also specifically targeted facilities crucial for Russian military operations. Thus, for example, the attack in Aleppo aimed at a base known for producing strike drones and camouflaged improvised explosive devices, IEDs. The success of this attack disrupted Russian capabilities in drone warfare and explosives manufacturing. The Khimik group utilized pre-planted explosives to enhance the effectiveness of their attacks. In the Aleppo operation, initial explosions were followed by secondary detonations, likely from stored munitions, which amplified the impact of the assault. This tactic not only caused immediate destruction but also created chaos and confusion among Russian forces. Prior to executing their operations, the Khimik group relied on intelligence gathered by Ukraine's main Directorate of Intelligence, the HUR. This intelligence identified vulnerable targeted and thus planned assaults that struck at facilities critical to Russian operations. Such operations were often covert in nature, with careful planning to avoid detection until the moment of attack. This included using camouflage and tactical positioning to approach targets without alerting Russian forces until it was too late. The Khimik group also took advantage of the local environment, such as desert-like terrains around Aleppo, which provided cover for their movements and facilitated surprise strikes against less fortified positions. These tactics reflect a sophisticated approach to asymmetric warfare, which exploited weaknesses in Russian defenses while maximizing the impact of their limited resources. The combination of surprise, intelligence-driven targeting, and effective use of explosives allowed the Khimik group to conduct impactful operations against a larger adversary. Thus, in late November 2024, Khimik participated in a major offensive that began with the capture of Aleppo. This operation marked a pivotal moment in the conflict, resulting in the fall of key cities and ultimately contributing to the ousting of President Bashar al-Assad from power by early December 2024. The offensive was characterized by rapid advances and effective use of combined arms tactics, showcasing Khimik's influence on the battlefield. Then, there was the Battle of Hama on December 1 to the 5th, 2024. Following their success in Aleppo, Khimik and allied forces quickly advanced to Hama. This city is vital for controlling routes between Damascus and coastal strongholds. The capture of Hama fully destabilized Assad's hold on central Syria and paved the way for subsequent assaults on Damascus. Finally, came the battle for Damascus on December 7, 2024. This was the culmination of Khimik's operations in Syria. The coordinated efforts of HTS and other factions led to the fall of the capital, marking the definitive end of Bashar al-Assad's rule. The speed and effectiveness of this offensive were attributed to the training and tactical support provided by Khimik to rebel forces. This success was part of a larger strategy of building solid networks and alliances in the region, with various Islamist factions and the broader Syrian opposition during the Syrian civil war. Here are the key alliances and relationships that defined their involvement. Khimik is closely allied with HTS, which was the dominant armed group in northwest Syria, particularly in the Idlib region, and is now the government of that country. HTS moved quickly to consolidate power by absorbing or eliminating rival factions, and Khimik's support in this consolidation process was crucial. Khimik also collaborated with a coalition of various rebel factions, under the umbrella of HTS-led operations. This coalition included groups that had been marginalized or defeated in previous conflicts, allowing for a unified front against Assad and his Russian and Iranian backers. Now that Syria is in the hands of the HTS, and Russian and Iranian involvement defeated, Ukraine has immediately stepped in to further help its ally, the HTS. Zelensky has just announced a commitment to provide humanitarian aid, particularly through the Grain from Ukraine initiative, which aims to stabilize the situation in Syria by supplying essential food resources. Thus, Ukraine will send significant amounts of grain to Syria. The first shipment of 500 tons of wheat flour has already been dispatched, which will feed over 33,000 families for a month. This aid comes at a critical time when over half of Syria's population is food insecure, with millions facing severe hunger conditions due to ongoing conflict and economic instability. With soaring food prices exacerbated by previous conflicts, Ukraine's grain supply could help stabilize costs in the short term. The influx of Ukrainian wheat may alleviate some pressure on local markets, which have seen significant price hikes for essential food items. By restoring agricultural exports to Syria, Ukraine aims to re-establish trade relationships that were disrupted during Assad's regime, which heavily relied on Russian imports. By providing essential food supplies and establishing diplomatic relations, Ukraine hopes to lay the groundwork for future economic cooperation and reconstruction efforts in the war-torn country. Ukraine's efforts will be bolstered by collaboration with European nations and the United States, which are expected to provide additional humanitarian and economic support. This initiative is part of a broader strategy to enhance Ukraine's role in international humanitarian efforts while countering Russian influence in the region. Following the fall of Assad, Ukraine is restoring diplomatic ties with Syria. In other words, Ukraine will take the role once occupied by Russia, in Syria. Ukrainian Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha recently visited Damascus, marking the first official Ukrainian delegation in the Syria of the HTS terrorists. During this visit, discussions included potential cooperation in various sectors, such as agriculture, technology, and cybersecurity. Beyond immediate humanitarian aid, Ukraine aims to collaborate with Syria on rebuilding critical infrastructure and revitalizing key sectors devastated by years of conflict. This aligns with Ukraine's broader geopolitical strategy of weakening Russia's foothold in the Middle East, while fostering new partnerships. It is worth pointing out that the regime now in charge of Syria is Al-Qaeda, which has simply been rebranded as HTS, and which thus provides a good fit for Ukraine.